Welcome. Is One Take Live. Before we even start, we ask you to please hit that share button, hit that like button, join us on Facebook. Ask your family to share it too. We want to drive up our numbers. We're now on Spotify and every single platform that you can think of, but we need you to follow us, okay? My job today is to just give you some updates. Some updates. Here in Orlando, we have a very important election. In fact, early election for this District 5 commissioner seat is going on right now. And I have someone who ran that election, ran a very clean election. And we just want to share with you the importance of not only this election, but let's just get in the habit now. Let's just keep nudging one another. This is the most, you hear us say it all the time, but this is for sure the most critical election year in our life. My guest today, if you grew up in Orlando, then you watched our guest grow up too. I mean, we watched her join pageants and dancing school and singing lessons, the dedication her family showed her, and then the community support also gave her the poise that she needed just to boost the voice and give her that ta 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 so that she would be crowned in 2003 Miss Florida, and then 1 year later Miss America. Now, for her and for all of us, those were crowning moments, no pun intended. That was then. Our city is still racing. She went to Nashville, she got married, did a reality show, came home, became a spokesperson for mental health, and did so many things to reacclimate herself into this community, and even got deeply involved in politics. Who am I speaking about? Ms. Ericka Dunlap. How you doing, sis?
Hi, well, how are you today?
I'm good. Do I seem like I'm
I mean, you got most of it down. You have the whole resume,
what
so
did I
thank
leave
you.
out? What did I leave out?
You left out that I produced the country album before Beyonce did. That's what I was doing in Nashville, Tennessee.
That's what people need to know. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, and you left out that I'm an author. You left out that I have been a speaker, a keynote speaker, commencement speaker, inspirational speaker for over 20 years.
I
I am now a
also
mother.
I was getting
So,
ready to say the big to do that
the
that
big to
almost
do.
six. Yeah, Miss Baby Girl, how are you?
I'm doing well. It has been quite a very extensive past couple of weeks,
Yeah,
and very intense in terms of running a campaign within 38 days. But then also, my father passed away, and so that
during
has
this
been
time. Yeah.
a very it was unexpected, and
Mhm.
so
So
that
sorry.
always
Yeah.
catches you off guard. And so
Mhm.
I am healing through the losses of the past couple of weeks, but nonetheless persevering. So thank you for asking.
Yeah. I also wanted you to know that we watched all seven of you all just really kind of just muddle it out. But I think what it did for this community is show us how important that seat really is. That District 5 seat covers not only Paramore, because we got stuck on that, but it
Right.
covers such an extended pattern of our city. And when I heard you and actually had a chance to moderate a piece for you for the seven candidates over at FAMU Law Center, that panel just showed us just how important this election. And I hope that people are starting to really get that tickle, if you will call it that. What are you thinking? You were out there. What was your thoughts?
So the importance of this election and the importance of this seat is underrated, is understated. I think people overlook just how important District 5 is because they think that it is a bunch of people who don't care. And the reason why they think that is because we don't have much voter turnout. And this is over time. This has not just been the past election or
Sure.
two. This has
Mhm.
been consistent throughout the elections since there was a District 5. And so I think that it's important that people start to hone in on the fact that your vote matters. Your vote is your voice, is the only way that you can really justifiably complain about anything. And a lot of
Mhm.
times, residents have viable complaints, but if you don't encourage others to be a part of the process by which people sacrificed and died for us to
Mhm.
have our ability to vote, whether it was people who were in village communities who could not have a say so, whether it was women who couldn't have a say so, people of younger age until the voting age became 18. There are so many disenfranchised groups that
Mhm.
have not had the chance to represent themselves. And when we don't vote, that just it waters down the democracy in the process.
It does. And I wanted to have you on so that we could really drive home the fact that, yes, early voting has already begun, but the special
Hmm.
election for this seat is this coming Tuesday, which is the 18th. Now, what we cannot do is have those who already went out and vote forget that they don't have to go out and vote again on
Right.
Tuesday. And I just left, Erica, the League of Women Voters breakfast this morning, where the seat for SOE, for the Orange County Supervisor of Election seat, is being gone after by 5 individuals. And that comment right there never came up. We talked just a smidge about District 5, but it's funny. The attorney for the SOE's office and I were online together, and I said, I'm going to ask you a question that I bet most people would say, well, that's a dumb question. And I said, how can we remind people that just because they went into the early election, or they got us narrowed down to the runoff, that they got to go back out and vote
They
either
definitely have
now.
to.
They have to. And so he said, well, it's not like we're going to add their vote with this vote. And I said, you see, that's why we don't ask questions, because that same mockery right there, people don't want to have that. And I
Hmm.
said, I can take it, but I bet you a lot of people don't realize that they have to vote again. So that's
So
why I wanted to have you on.
sure. I mean, I think that we have to have a continual education as it
Yeah.
relates to this whole process, because with the District 5 election, it was a special election. And there were
Yes.
several people that are still asking me, when do I vote for you? When do I vote? And they're not realizing, number one, you have to live in the district. Number two, it was a special election, so it happened before the traditional general election that's going to be happening in November. And so most people are hearing about Trump and they're hearing about Biden, and that's all they are concerned with is the media that surrounds the presidential election, not
Mhm.
realizing that we also have this very critical local election that affects your day-to-day life. You know, the
Yes.
presidential elections are exciting, and they definitely affect the trajectory of how the country will be moving, and perhaps how Congress will be shaped. But it doesn't necessarily affect your day to day going and coming to work, going to school, and coming home.
Mhm. So, with that being said, Erica, I felt like you were the one that I needed to reach out to just drive home the fact that there are different times that they can go out and do this. They can vote from 7 a to 7 p during this week right here. But over the weekend, those times are going to change. You can early vote at the supervisor of elections office only. Early voting is done on West Cayley Street. Now, on Tuesday, which is the actual election day, all 5 locations that were open before will be open again for you. And
Right.
nobody was sharing that information. So I just really wanted to get you on, sis, to really talk about driving home this election and getting us ramped up for November is so important. But also in August, we have our election for our state attorney. We
Mm.
have elections then for supervisor of elections. So it's a lot going on,
And you
you
don't want
know?
to get tired. I think
Yeah.
it's critical that voters understand you cannot get tired of going to vote or sending in your vote. I mean, the process has become very, very, very easy. And
Mhm.
people, because they have there's so much apathy and, dare I say, laziness, really, when it comes to even researching candidates and deciding who would represent you best. If they're, it's more than just their personality and their presence. It's more so about their credentials, their
Mhm.
ability to effectively communicate. Do you really feel like they will be able to um, get to the table and turn the table if necessary for you and for your issues? You have to really investigate. And why not? I mean, I think that we investigate television sets that we want more than we do our elected officials. And so
Absolutely.
voters cannot be lazy, and you cannot be unconcerned and apathetic about this process. We have to make sure that our vote is our voice. That's the only way.
Mhm.
Even if you don't know how to sing, this is the only way that you'll be able to sing, is if you actually take that pen and draw in that little dot.
We talked about today at the League of Women Voters brunch the fact that there are some changes that are going to have to be made in this upcoming cycle to make it easier. More more sites are going to have to be added. We have about 20 electoral sites now. They're looking to add on 8 more. There's so much that needs to be changed in a short period of time. But that should not bother you as a voter. One thing that I do want you to be made aware of is that if you choose to vote by mail, you got to make sure that that part is registered and your signatures are matching. Make sure to get that ballot in before the prescribed cutoff time. Right now, vote by mail, I wouldn't do. I would actually go to early vote. If you're voting, not if you, when you get your vote in for this District 5 race, if you are in that area. Ericka Dunlap is our guest today on Monica May's One Take Live. So now that we've talked about that, let's bring us up to date, please, on what you've been doing, sis.
So since the election, I've actually been resting and recalibrating. Like I mentioned, I've had some life going on, and so I've taken some time to just reflect on being the mom of a small child, and that is all encompassing. She's 3 years old, and she wants to be at my leg as often as
Yeah.
possible, and so in getting the past just couple of weeks under my belt, I've also just been recalibrating my business, because during campaign season, you're not really working. You're working on the campaign strategically and making sure that you're hitting all of the different metrics that you need to in order to advance and to do well. And so, my business is Crown Communication Group, and we focus on public relations and creating campaigns for important conversations that need to be had. So most recently, we joined forces with Advil and two very intelligent and just amazing representatives, Black women who are doctors. One was a psychiatrist, a psychologist, excuse me, and one that's an OBGYN, to talk about Black maternal health and some of the challenges that come along with being a mother, an expectant mother, and some of the confidences that you need to have to advocate for yourself, and then also mental health awareness, specifically as it relates to Black men, just fighting the battles and the struggles that they fight with, knowing that they're not alone, and giving them resources and tips for how they can best protect themselves and best protect their wellness and their mental health.
All right. And when I mentioned before about being an advocate for mental health, I'm aware of your campaign working with those huge companies, but I'm also aware of just how prevalent your voice is in talking about women and the struggles that we have with mental health. You, as a queen, as a crowned queen, know the differences that women go through when they've come up a certain way, when they reach a certain pinnacle, and then when they get to that rise, it's difficult. And
Hmm.
you've lost friends to mental health. And when we did our piece with Minister Tekoa Pori a couple of years ago, Live Out Loud, you
Hmm.
took the stage and I took a picture of you and I said, "This is your mantra. This is your stage point." You know how they have that word SharePoint? This is your
Hmm.
stage point. Can you share with us why it is important for beautiful women, for women who have reached what they could, I mean, not even dream about, and the mental health issues that they would still struggle with? Can you talk about that for just a moment?
Sure. It's important for us to not forget that even our strong friends, even the people that we admire, and the people who are just remarkable individuals who seem to have it all going on, they also struggle with keeping it all together, because there's a lot of moving pieces to being a successful person. And so when you add in all the pressures, sometimes that pressure just becomes just too much to bear, when you don't see a way out, or perhaps when there is a chemical imbalance, and perhaps there are some additional factors that go into just not having
Mhm.
enough support. And even if you have friends, you have supportive family, that doesn't mean that they're going through what you're going through. I often have told some of my family members that as a Miss America, you are a supporter, you're a friend, but you're not me. And you don't have to deal with the same type of scrutiny. You don't have to deal with the pressures of looking like you did when you were 21 years old, the expectation that you are
Mhm.
always going to be on, and that you're always willing to take pictures, or that you're not having a bad day, or there are so many factors that go into being a person in the public eye, yourself included. You understand that if you see someone at Walgreens, or you see someone at the corner store, and they want to talk your head off
Woo-hoo.
about something that happened at work for you,
Mhm.
it's real life for them, because you
Yeah.
are essentially like a fantasy. I remember the first time I saw a news anchor that I really loved on television. I was a little girl, and I was at a grocery store, and I walked down this aisle, and I saw Marla Weech, and I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, I just stopped in my tracks, and it was kind of strange now that I think about it. Like, why was I so almost enamored by this woman? But it's because that television, that radio,
Mhm.
that hearing that person, seeing that person on that screen, or hearing them
Yeah.
over the radio, that becomes that's like it's a amplifier, but you don't think that you'll ever actually meet them, you'll ever
Mhm.
actually interact with them. And so when you get the opportunity to, you feel like it's your one shot. And
Yeah.
so often people do not recognize that you are a human being that does a job well, and you have a natural gift, more than likely, but that doesn't mean that you are that all is well. And so just protecting that with women is very important to me, very key, to give people the agency and the freedom to speak about some of those pressures and those challenges, and knowing that you're not by yourself, you're not alone. A lot of us have to deal with a variety of things on a daily basis. And
Yeah.
I think one of the best ways to circumvent that is to write. And you have to really get into a practice of journaling, get into a practice of getting it all out. Because if you don't feel safe talking to a therapist, you have to get it out, and you have to get it out in a healthy way. So I just advocate for women, especially. We always talk more than the average man. And so
Mhm.
if you're not talking it out, definitely writing it out is very important to healing yourself through the challenges that you're experiencing.
Mhm. The moment that I'm talking about at that Live Out Loud was interesting for me because I was on stage that day and part of a panel, and I'm listening to the women, and everything was glossy. And came home and wrote that night. I said, they're talking about cars and houses and this and that and the other. And then I was just here to talk about me,
Mm,
making sure that I could connect in a
mm,
realistic way. And I was not putting them down, not in any kind of way. But in my head, Erica, when I read my journal entry, I was living out loud, but I was hearing noise. And
mm,
the noise I was hearing was I good enough to be on stage? Obviously, I was. But
mhm,
even a person of my stature, of your stature, of many who have lost their lives or taken their lives, sometimes get crossed or confused about whether they deserve to be in that moment, in that space at that time. And I will never forget that. And I decided, and I'm working on it now, those journal entries will wind up being a book because I
mhm.
know it's going to help somebody. Because who would have thought Monica May is feeling like, does she belong here? And it was just a thought. It was
Mm-hmm.
noise at that moment. The same night that you talked about Ch- um, our other sister who took her life, the other Miss
Chesley, yes.
Chesley,
Mm-hmm.
you
Chesley
know,
Christ.
Chesley
Yes.
Chris.
And I say her name because she is still one of the most beautiful,
Yes.
accomplished, um, great personality.
Had
She
it
was a
going
lawyer,
on. Yes.
had it going on, all so many of the things that especially growing up I envied so much. I mean, just this glorious crown of hair that she had. She was just she was
A
she
sweetheart.
ran track. She
Mhm.
had this fabulous body. She seemed to have it all. She lived in a New York high rise. She was on television as a media correspondent for red
Mhm.
carpets. I mean, she was living the life, but she secretly had her own demons and battles that she was dealing with. And that is just, I mean, it still chokes me up just to think
Mhm.
that someone who has overcome, passing the bar,
Mhm.
going through law school, just being picked on for being a biracial child, all the things that came along with her
Mhm.
journey that really should be celebrated. She still felt like there wasn't enough. She wasn't enough.
The noise, the
Absolutely.
noise, the
The
noise.
noise.
Would you, and I want you to think about this because this just hit me. What if we teamed up to do a workshop, invite women in to talk about that noise?
Oh, sure. I think
Think
that would be
about that.
powerful.
Let's
That
think
would be
about that.
excellent because a lot of people are suffering, a lot of people are hurting. I
Mhm.
think about even with my journey as as a I like to think I'm a semi-public person because I want to maintain some portion of my privacy. I just believe that everyone is entitled to a private life. But with that, there are so many people who, like myself, have done these amazing things,
Mhm.
extraordinary resumes. However, again, the pressure can be so
It's a lot.
difficult
It's a
to
lot.
overcome. It really can be. And so I know that if I feel that way, and I have to work myself out of dark days and challenges and feelings of depression and praying myself out and listening to the music and eating better foods and making sure I move and getting into the
Yeah.
sun. There's a lot of different practices that go along with keeping a healthy mindset. So I know that other people need that encouragement. Other women certainly need it.
Yeah, I think we'll talk about that another time, but we're definitely going to do that. One thing about Erica and I is if one of us says, let's do something, the other one is
It
going to
gets
say yes.
done.
Just like this interview, I reached out to her and I said, yo, done. We got to do this. We have to talk about the election. We have to talk about what you've been doing. You know, just think about that, Erica. You were living the life, and then you came back home. I was living the life, and then I came back to Orlando.
Hmm.
We could have taken that in a couple of different ways and been looked at in a couple of different ways. But I
Sure.
think we have both used those opportunities for our good.
Well, this is home for me, so it's
Mhm.
like where else would I go? I mean, surely I could have moved anywhere. And
Mhm.
I'm one of those people that no matter where I go, I believe that I'm going to make it. I'll be
Yes.
fine. I always find my way. Even if I'm a little lost, I don't wander for long. So
Mhm.
I'm a resilient and resourceful person that can find my way. However, it just made sense to me when it was time for me to transition from the music industry and realizing that it was, I dare say, it was a lost cause. I feel like I laid several bricks along the journey that people are
Mhm.
now skipping down, which is
Mhm.
fine because
Mhm.
that's a part of it. Sometimes you do have to be a bricklayer in order to see something great be built. And so I feel like the voices of Black people in country music have expanded because I dared. to do it. I dared to do it when it wasn't popular, when YouTube wasn't a thing, when you had to literally you had to take your CDs and your tapes and you had to record them and take
Mhm.
them into places and hope that
Yes,
people would listen to them. I was selling CDs outside of, events. I was
yeah.
selling CDs out of my backpacks and purses and trunk and everything else. So, I've
Mhm.
been through the early stages of promoting yourself and really putting full faith in your talent and full faith in your ability to do this. And so when I made that transition back home, it was like, okay, sure, I could have stayed in Nashville and just made my life there because I had been there for 4.5, 5 years.
Mhm.
And then I could have stayed there, or I could have, moved to another city because I had received all sorts of requests to work at different places. And I could have, but I just needed that time to come back to center. And
Yeah,
center for me was the place where I knew the streets like the back of my hand.
yeah.
I had my support system with my friends and my family. And this is home. So
Mhm.
I'm happy that I made the transition back home and really dug in deep. I did things while I was away, but I really came back and galvanized myself into the community as soon as I got back. So I haven't
Mhm.
skipped a beat with,
Mhm.
the things that I did when I was a little girl. I just expounded on that and gained more knowledge and understood more about how processes work and how I could be most effective.
She
So I'm
also
doing that.
helps I'm sorry to cut you off. She also helps young ladies become the pageant queens that they know that they can be through her Crown PR company. So we've already put up on our slide how we can reach out to you. But is there anything other than that before we wrap that you want to give out in terms of information for people to reach out and just stay connected with you as a voting advocate, as a beauty queen advocate, as a spokesperson?
So I'm hoping that people take from this interview specifically that voting is critically important. It is something that we should not sleep on, and it's something that we have to make the decisions. We have to make the hard decisions, even if it doesn't seem like there is a clear choice. We have to figure out what that clear choice is. Ask the tough questions and be a part of the process. There are people who would give anything to be a part of this process. There are people who are returning citizens,
Yeah.
migrants, some minors who would love to have that opportunity to vote, to have the right to vote. It is our responsibility. It is our duty. While we may not ever go and fight in battle and be in the military, our responsibility as citizens is to be a part of the electoral process and not to squander our right to vote.
Mhm. I would also add that our OCFelections.com, I believe it is going to be where you'll head to for the locations. There's 5 locations when it comes to this Tuesday's election where you can go. This is again the city seat for District 5. Please do what you were given the opportunity to do, the right to do. It's about integrity too. How can you
Hmm.
complain about a street light or anything when you haven't gone out to vote? And not to say that your elected officials only deal with the street lights, but it's so much more than that. And just become a part of the process and use your voice as your vote. Erica, thank you so much for being on Monica May's One Take Live. We sure appreciate you.
Thank you.
And we're going to follow up with that noise.
There you go.
Thank you. And don't forget to tell your friends to join us. They can share that, click that like button and share your comments always. We are on every single social platform. Again, it's Monica May's One Take Live.